Under the vast canopy of stars, civilizations across time have looked up and asked, "What is the shape of truth?" Some saw circles in the heavens, spirals in seashells, triangles in temples. But there is one shape that stands solemn, unmoving, a shape that repeats itself in sacred grounds, modern monuments, and even cinematic visions of the unknown, the Black Cube. Hermetic philosophy teaches us that as above, so below, as within. The Kaaba in Mecca, the most sacred site in Islam, is a black cube wrapped in cloth, circled by millions each year. Across the world, in public plazas of Western cities like New York and Copenhagen, similar cubic monuments stand minimalist, matte, unadorned. At first glance, their presence feels arbitrary. But as we look closer, a question emerges. Why this shape? Why here? Why now? Even Hollywood seems unable to resist. In 2001, A Space Odyssey, the enigmatic black monolith, smooth, rectangular, haunting, signals evolution each time it appears. In Interstellar, the tesseract, a higher dimensional cube, becomes the bridge between space-time and the inner self. Are these coincidences, or collective whispers of a deeper archetype trying to speak? What draws humanity over and over again to this simple yet potent form? Is it geometry or memory? Is it mass or meaning? To understand the cube, we must look beyond its physicality and into its planetary counterpart, Saturn. In ancient mythologies, Saturn was more than a planet. He was a god, and not a gentle one. To the Romans, he was the devourer of his own children, the relentless keeper of time. To the Greeks, he was Cronus' father, of the Olympians wielder of the sickle, the one who ruled during a golden age, and later was cast down. Saturn represents boundaries, discipline, limitation, karma, not in a moral sense, but in the cause and effect fabric of reality. In astrology, Saturn is the teacher we resent, but who teaches what we most need. His lessons are never easy, but they are never wasted. And Saturn, in his rings, shows us something curious: repetition, orbit, confinement. A planet encircled. A sphere bound by invisible threads. Some Hermetic thinkers suggest the Black Cube is Saturn's sigil, in the third dimension, the geometric echo of his influence on human consciousness. If time had a shape, it might be this: a box. Defined, weighted, inevitable. And yet, within that box, paradoxically lies the key to liberation. That's the great mystery, that what binds us may also build us. Within the teachings of sacred geometry, the ancient science of patterns proportion, and the architecture of the cosmos, the cube is not random. It is foundational. The Platonic solids' 5 perfect three-dimensional forms each correspond to an element. The tetrahedron to fire, the icosahedron to water, and the cube to earth. The cube is solidity, structure, groundedness. 6 equal faces, 12 edges, unyielding symmetry. It is the geometry of temples, altars, and thrones. It is the symbol of that which supports, but also restricts. In the mystical tree of life from the Kabbalah, the lowest Sephira Malkuth is associated with the material world. Malkuth is kingdom, but it is also confinement. It is the realm where divine light becomes form, but also where form forgets its source. Some esoteric traditions visualize Malkuth as a cube dense, dark, and real. Here, the cube is dual. It is the floor beneath your feet and the prison of your perceptions. It is where you begin and where you must awaken. Think of the cube as the mental container in which belief systems, cultural programs, and societal norms are stacked like boxes in a warehouse. Most people live inside these boxes without knowing. But for the Hermeticist, the goal is not to destroy the cube, it is to realize you're in one. Because once you become aware of the shape of your mind, you can start to reshape it. Hermeticism, the ancient spiritual science attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, teaches us that the cosmos is mind, that all is mental. And from this premise flows the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. As below, so above. In the context of the Black Cube, this principle invites a bold reflection. If this form appears again and again, in the external world, in sacred sites, symbols, architecture, and media, might it also exist within us? Think of the cube not just as a shape, but as a metaphor for the conditioned self. The layers of thought patterns we inherit, the rules we never question, the jobs we work but don't love, the expectations we carry like inherited debts. These are mental cubes, belief systems that define the edges of our awareness. And then there is Saturn, not just the planet, not just the myth, but the principle. The part of you that delays gratification, that fears change, that demands control. Saturn is the architect of the inner cube. But paradoxically, he is also the one who pushes you to outgrow it through hardship, repetition, and trial. The Black Cube of Saturn is not a warning. It is a mirror. It reflects the hidden architecture of your own psyche and quietly asks, do you recognize these walls? When we observe the world through the Hermetic lens, symbols, like the cube, become less like artifacts and more like invitations. They ask us not only to decode the outer world, but to engage the inner one. Now we step deeper from symbol into awareness, from form into consciousness. In the Gnostic worldview, the material world is not evil, but it is flawed, a kind of simulation crafted by a lesser intelligence called the demiurge. In this telling, the soul forgets its origin and becomes trapped in form, repeating cycles of birth, suffering, and death. The world becomes a cube, structured, rational, but ultimately confining. Predictable, mechanical. Some occult thinkers propose that the Saturn cube is the emblem of this entrapment. They point to its appearance in corporate logos, media, and ritual spaces as signs of a deeper program, one that keeps humanity focused on survival, time hierarchy, and control. In this view, Saturn is the warden and the cube is the cell. But Hermeticism offers another way. It does not teach escape, but mastery. It does not suggest we abandon the material, but realize it as mind-made. The cube then becomes not a prison, but a puzzle one that when solved leads to higher awareness. In this light, the black cube is the final exam of the initiate. Do you worship it? Fear it? Ignore it? Or do you see through it, realizing that it was always a construct within your own perception? The cube does not need to vanish. It needs to be understood. That is the Hermetic path, not rebellion, not surrender, but revelation. And yet the story becomes even more layered when we consider the polarity of all things. The Kybalion reminds us, everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. What appears dark may hide light. What appears rigid may contain potential. The Black Cube of Saturn, feared by some as a symbol of control, may also be the key to transformation. In the realm of conspiracy and esoteric speculation, the cube is sometimes portrayed as a tool of subjugation, a mark of those who seek to systematize human consciousness, to trap the soul in endless loops of consumption, distraction, obedience. These theories point to the prevalence of cube-like structures in finance, governance, and entertainment. The message is stark. You are inside the cube. You just don't know it. But this view, while compelling, is incomplete. Because according to Hermetic law, the cube cannot be evil in itself, only how it is used or perceived. The same cube that can trap the mind can also train it. The same structure that conditions you can once illuminated empower you. The cube is also discipline, foundation, focus. It is the soil in which higher awareness must take root. Polarity teaches us to look past surface oppositions, good versus evil, freedom versus structure, and instead see the spectrum of potential. The cube is not a villain. It is a vessel. It holds whatever you put inside it. Let us now meet a different kind of seeker, one who never intended to seek at all. He is not a mystic, not a spiritualist, not a follower of Hermes, Saturn, or sacred geometry. He is an architect, a scientist, a designer, someone grounded in the concrete. He believes in physics, in logic, in what can be measured. Symbols to him are decorative projections of culture, not vessels of cosmic truth. He once dismissed the black cube as aesthetic, minimalist, a modernist nod to form and symmetry. But over time, something began to nag at the edges of his mind. Why does the same shape appear in religious ritual and corporate branding? Why in sci-fi films and financial architecture? Why is it always black, always silent, always present? He begins to notice what he had ignored. A cube on the desk of a cube in a VR startup logo. A cube floating in a dream. Still, he resists. Correlation is not causation, he tells himself. But late one night, while reading more out of boredom than belief, he stumbles upon a line from the Kybalion. The lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding. He reads it again. Something inside him shifts. He doesn't become a convert, but he becomes curious. And that is enough. Because once curiosity awakens, the cube begins to open. What once seemed solid becomes porous. He begins to see symbols not as static, but as interactive mirrors rather than messages. He starts asking new kinds of questions. If this cube is a projection, whose mind is it projecting from? And if I'm drawn to it, is it speaking to something inside me? He doesn't believe, but he begins to observe. And in the Hermetic path, that is the first step toward understanding. So we return to the cube not to worship it, nor to destroy it, but to truly see it. The Black Cube of Saturn is not a relic of superstition. It is not just an architectural motif or a metaphysical puzzle. It is a symbol that speaks across time, culture, and consciousness. And like all true symbols, it does not impose its meaning, it draws yours out. For some, it will remain just a shape. For others, it may become a cipher, a quiet reminder that structure and mystery are not opposites, but companions. That discipline can birth transcendence. That what binds us also refines us. Perhaps the cube appears everywhere, because it exists within everyone. As the mind seeks patterns, as the soul seeks truth, the cube stands as an unchanging anchor, challenging us to evolve not by escaping form, but by illuminating it. So what is the Black Cube really? A prison, a portal, a metaphor for mind, or simply a test? Will you walk past it or look deeper? Because once you truly look, the cube begins to dissolve. And in its place you may find yourself. Now, dear listener, the question turns to you. Is the Black Cube a symbol of confinement, or a gateway to awakening? You decide. If this journey stirred something within you, a memory, a question, a quiet discomfort, then you've already stepped beyond the surface. Symbols are living things. They evolve as you evolve. And perhaps the Black Cube will keep appearing in dreams, in headlines, in the corner of your vision, not to haunt you, but to remind you there is more to see. If this is your first encounter with Hermetic philosophy, welcome. If it's your 1000th, welcome again. Because in truth, we revisit the same truths at deeper levels over and over like Saturn's rings. In the next episode, we'll explore a new principal vibration and why Hermetic wisdom insists that nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. You may never hear silence the same way again. Until then, I invite you to reflect. Where are the cubes in your own life? What patterns do you inhabit unconsciously? And what might happen if you turned inward and observed? If this video offered value, share it with someone who still thinks a cube is just a cube. And let's open the conversation below. What does the Black Cube mean to you? The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. Stay curious, stay awake, and remember, as within so without,